Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the UAE National Anthem.
Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the BX 2025 and to this special session, NEP Pitch Lab, Shaping Behaviors, Shaping Policy, hosted in collaboration with the National Experts Program. It is a pleasure to have you here with us. My name is Maryam Limreikhi. I am a fellow from the National Experts Program's first cohort in media and creative industries, and I am the founder and CEO of Reisch Consultancy. Developed in 2019 under the leadership of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the President of the UAE, the National Experts Program is a launchpad for Emirati experts. NEP has trained 86 experts in different sectors, and today you will be hearing from 7 of them, and before introducing them, let's show you a video about NEP. For the past 3 years, I have been working closely with the teams in charge of the Year of Sustainability and the Year of Community. Some of you might not know about the thematic years of the UAE, but I just wanted to let you know that in the past 3 years, we have based our work on driving behavioral change through storytelling and communications. Today, you will hear from 7 national experts from the 4th cohort. They have spent several months training with the behavioral science group, exploring how behavioral insights can help address pressing national challenges across key sectors. Today, you will hear their ideas for behavioral nudges. You will not see feasibility studies or business plans, but the jury will be asked to decide which ideas hold the most potential to be studied further, and the winners will continue the journey with the behavioral science group, incubating their ideas and developing budgets and feasibility studies. Before we begin, allow me to introduce our distinguished panel of judges. His Excellency Homaid Shimmari, Deputy Group CEO and Chief Corporate and Human Capital Officer at Mubadala and NEP Advisory Board Member. His Excellency Ahmed Shamsi, CEO of Emirates Foundation and the Director of the National Experts Program. Rasha Attar, Director of Behavioral Science Group and NEP Program Committee Member. Dr. David Halpern, President of Emeritus, Behavioral Insights Team, and Dr. Lucia Reisch, Director of El-Erian Institute of Behavioral Economics Policy in the University of Cambridge. This distinguished panel of judges will evaluate the national experts from NEP 4.0, who will present behavioral interventions in their sector. These interventions are meant to tackle pressing national challenges with the help of nudging solutions. Our experts will pitch their interventions to our panel, who will evaluate and challenge them. The selected interventions will eventually be chosen for real-world implementation by the Behavioral Science Group and its partners. We will now begin the pitching session. Each national expert will have 5 minutes to present their solution, followed by 5 minutes for Q&A with our panel of judges. Without further ado, let us begin with our first presenter. Please welcome Faisal Al-Hawi, Director of the AI Factory at the Abu Dhabi Department of Government Enablement.
Assalamu alaikum. Let me show you 2 things that I really love, but drive me so crazy. This is Khalid and Shamma. This is their average screen time on an average week. And this is what they spend their time on. Now, if you haven't said enough, this drives me crazy. Now, it turns out it's not just Khalid and Shamma. According to the World Health Organization, more than 50% of children in the UAE spend more than 2 hours a day on their screens. That obviously impacts their physical, cognitive, mental, but importantly as well, their social skills. Let's face it, if you get used to dealing with screens, you kind of lose touch dealing with humans. So I ask myself every day, how can I change this? How can we empower kids, specifically age 6 to 10, because that's a very critical time in their development, to create more balanced screen time habits? And that's where I started my journey. And the first step is to really understand the problem. When you really dig into it, it's not just children. There are parents involved, and then there's the wider society and environment as well. So you see, parents, we love to take a break. We live a very busy social life. We come home exhausted. It's always easier to just give them an iPad and get a peace of mind. So that kind of like creates the loop. Children, on the other hand, they're not capable of self-regulating. They want instant gratification. And then what tops the whole thing up is that we live in a very warm environment, if you haven't noticed. So a lot of the time in the year, we're indoors, where there is ample opportunity to just grab a screen. So all of this kind of like creates a vicious cycle, and it's not a simple problem to solve. But it turns out this is where very cost-effective behavioral nudges could really go a long way. And what has worked before are 2 classical nudges. One is adding friction to the loop. Now, if we make it a bit harder for kids to get access to screens, turns out it might be very impactful. The other thing that really works and our children love is there a social loop with their peers. If they see their peers doing something, they're also likely to follow. And that's exactly how I'm proposing us to solve this problem. The solution I propose starts in schools, and specifically in their break times. I'm proposing that we dedicate secluded screen times area where children have to walk across the school. It's difficult for them. Take them away from their peers, and if you want to spend your screen time there, go for it. Now, if you couple that with a very lightweight incentive system, like, for example, if you spend the least amount of time on screens in a week, you get to go home earlier on a Friday that really can go a long way. So whatever I'm proposing hopefully is easy, is attractive, and it's also timely. It's when the children have to make the decision. So it looks like this. If you want to play your screens, go on, be alone, away from your friends, and then we will reward and celebrate people who spend the least amount of time. We also believe that it's very feasible. We can start with randomized controlled trials in specific schools, monitor how it goes for about 3-4 months, and then depending on the results, scale it out to different schools, and then potentially to society. And then we will monitor our success if we notice a reduced time of screen during their breaks. I'm hoping I can start a movement. If we want to build the nation that we all aspire for, we really need every young mind. And I'm hoping with simple interventions like this, I will be helping in creating a more contributing and a healthier next generation, one nudge at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Faisal. Do we have any questions from our distinguished panel of judges?
Thank you. Look, it's great, and it's an issue which people are wrestling with across the world. But let me just a tiny bit of challenge. One is that, are you worried that kind of a secondary kind of cool niche that kids will want to go to, will that backfire? And also, one argument might be that is it the screen time per se, or is what you're doing on the screen? So, and maybe I should start, you mentioned the parents, but we've let the parents off the hook.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a parent, so I will get off the hook. But yeah, Dr. David, this is an excellent question, and I actually looked at that. There's definitely no question about the skills that screen time actually could give our kids, especially in the era we live into. We don't want to have a generation that is digitally illiterate. But I do believe that there's also a limit to that. We cannot expect screens to give our children the kind of human skills, social skills, psychological skills, and also critical thinking skills working with their hands. So I believe there has to be a balance, and I believe schools are doing a great job in terms of giving that access for educational purposes, but we just want to kind of create that tension on the other side.
Faisal, my question is there a world where we could have a middle ground, where we could use screen time to also entice, physical activity or simulations or what sort, or experiential learning for kids? So just developing on what Professor David said.
Yeah, Your Excellency, I think, like I said, we are in this era where screens are everywhere. It wouldn't be too long before we see AR, VR experiences in our learning environments. So I think we are doing enough in that phase. And I think whatever I'm pitching is not to kind of completely take that away. It's just to create just one more tension pulling the other way around. So I think you're absolutely on, we need to strike a balance. But if the kids kind of start experiencing screens in school, at home, outside of their homes, then that would kind of imbalance the equation.
Thank you so much. It's very, very inspiring, and I think also very much in line with what kind of the world or some advanced countries are actually going to. So reduce kind of useless screen time and open up that time. So my question is, usually we have, those behavioral approaches are part of a whole toolbox. So how would ideally the rest look like? So some countries went into completely prohibiting the use of cell phones in school, for instance, or at least you talk about 6 to 10 years, I think.
Yes.
So what about the 0 to 6 ones that, I saw the other day, I saw strollers with inbuilt screen holders, which I think is actually almost children's abuse.
Yes, I also have toddlers in the ages of 3 years old, so I also can very much relate to what you're saying, and I think they can also be included, and they should be included. But I think it's a bit, the way I see it, the ages 6 to 10 are a bit straightforward because their screen time activities in school are a bit controlled, And I'm trying to start in a very specific environment because the moment you get out of the boundaries of school, the control is very much hard because society plays a role, different cultures of raising children at home plays a role. Some parents really want their children to be extremely close to digital and screens, and others would like them to be extremely on the other side of things. So 100% we need to include the 0 to 6, but I wanted to start with a very specific group and see how that goes, and then kind of like move towards that spectrum.
Thank you so much, Faisal.
Thank you.
For the next presenter, please welcome Dr. Mohamed Al-Amri, Acting Director of the Genome and Biobank Division at the Department of Health.
Assalamu alaikum. Abdullah is an Emirati child that is standing in front of the Burj Khalifa on a New Year's Eve. He's listening to the cheers, to the joy, different nationalities, all happy, and the whole environment around him is filled with cheerfulness. However, Abdullah is a consequence of a genetically incompatible couple. He has a rare disease called retinitis pigmentosa that would make his vision look something like this. Ultimately, he will succumb to total darkness. And that's exactly why I'm here today. The UAE is sixth, not in economic prosperity, nor passport index, but in the prevalence of genetic diseases. And this problem is affecting families, societies, and the government. My job as Mohammed, who's leading the Emirati Genome Project in Abu Dhabi, is to make sure that the UAE is no longer part of this list, especially in the year of community. As part of the government, we started something called the premarital genetic screening, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it, where we tell the couples if they have certain genes that they're gonna pass on to their children, that they will be what we call incompatible, and their child might have a disease. However, we saw that more than 50% to 60% of these incompatible marriages or incompatible couples decide to still go ahead with marriage. And there are two main reasons why they still go ahead with marriages. The first was cultural. So we asked them, why are you still going ahead with marriage? What they say was, we went to their house, we're not gonna back down. That's it, that was it. The second issue was financial. Both couples, when we asked them, why are you going ahead with marriage? They said, we booked the hall, we paid for all the arrangements. If we don't go ahead with the marriage, this is gonna put us on a financial burden. So if you put these two reasons together, the main issue here is time. When do we test? When do they need to know if they're compatible or not compatible? So our idea was an app. I know what you're gonna say, oh, it's just another app. No, this app is actually crucial. Why? Because this app is gonna be linked to the Emirati Genome Project. So the Emirati Genome Project captured more than 70% of the Emirati population's genomes. So if we link it to this app, they can go into it securely, check their compatibility way before they take in any actions that they need for the marriage. And with that, they will be able to know what's the next step that they can take. So what we thought of, so we called it Mawadda. It's really difficult to translate that in English, but it's something around the line of compassion and love. So what we thought of is that first we're gonna start as a trial in one Emirate. Then if we see a lot of attractions on the app, then we would call that a success. And then after that, we would scale it up to the whole country. This might be a simple idea, but this will impact the lives of Abdullah, many in his generation, and future generations ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohamed. Our distinguished panel of judges, do you have any questions?
Can't be me first every time, being mean. No, it's really interesting. Who said romance is dead, eh? Which is one very practical behavioural question is, I suppose, and it's obviously culturally specific, but would it be better to go in a positive way? Like in some sense, we're identifying who you can't marry, but actually to say, hey, I've got some really great suggestions, or we have, for who you might want to meet. Would you do it in the positive way almost, rather than a negative? In which case, should it slide into some other kinds of app or context within which you're trying to positively identify who your partner might be?
That's a good idea, but I think there's some
that is a
cultural
very advanced dating app.
Yes, that's exactly
If you think about it. Yes, but the thing is, I think we're a very, very culturally sensitive country, as many in the region. I think doing it that way would kind of make it a bit difficult culturally, but I understand where you're coming from, and I think it's a good idea, but I think it will put that kind of sensitivity that we need to somehow overcome it first to have an app like that.
Doctor, we went easy on Faisal because he was the first, but as we agreed backstage, we want to grill you a bit.
Definitely.
My question is just to develop what David said again. Given the genomics project is a community project, and you'll probably onboard families, extended families, etc. Is there a way to also identify before, as you said, the first step even happens? Where is the compatibility? Advised, where it's not, where it can cause problems, and then use that as a nudge to raise awareness in society rather than enforce it.
So Sadik, you mean between regions, between societies?
Regions, extended family, cousins, because what people maybe sometimes might go for a hit and miss element, saying that, we've married people into the family or what sort, or they might not know about the genome compatibility. So how do you make them aware, given that, there are already projects in the US and what sort that use it for ancestry, for example?
Yeah, exactly. So we can do something like that. The issue is that these kind of diseases that we're talking about, what we call an autosomal recessive disease. Basically, this disease is not seen in the person. So one brother, let's say in one family, one person might have it, the other might not. So it'd be really difficult to put it in as a society-based or as a family-based like data in a way. But we can do it individually, and that's basically what the app is doing, individually. And I think we can do it this way, but it'll be a bit confusing for them as well.
Thank you. So if I understood right, there's actually 3 different behaviors or 3 different entry points for potential behavioral approaches. So timing is key. I think that's pretty clear. Uptake of the app kind of in general. You want people to increase the uptake. And the third is adherence to the suggestion, like adherence to the result. So, I mean, either get married or marry. And in none of those, and these are actually 3 different behaviors and probably need different approaches.
True.
Maybe you can just explain what the app does and cannot do as well.
Okay. So the first thing is time, as you mentioned. So the app is going to give them a preliminary result of compatibility. So this will tell them if they should go ahead or not with the actions that I talked about. The second thing is the uptake. And the uptake, what we thought about is incentives. So we can tie the app to multiple programs. There's a program called Medim, where it kind of lower the cost of marriages within Abu Dhabi. There's also, let's say, Ittihad Miles in a way where they can, if they're compatible, they can use that for their honeymoon afterwards. So there are multiple incentives that can bring them to the app. And the third was, what was the third, sorry?
So that people stick or adhere to the suggestion they get?
Yeah, adhere. So the thing is, everything that we do when it comes to the program itself is optional. So it'll be difficult to make them adhere to it, but what we can do is nudge them to use the app and adhere. If it's incompatible, at least like before, let's say booking a hole, they know that they're incompatible. So they have that in the back of their head before going and doing any action like in the future. So I think that's the only way I see it, to be honest. But
There could be a follow-up with more information why it's strongly suggested to follow.
Yeah,
long-term
so we could tell them. So basically, what we want to do is that, and this is something that is being done now, is that we show them the consequences. Oops, sorry. we show them the consequences, as in like how would the baby look like, or the newborn would look like, in a way that not necessarily scare them, but this is something that you're gonna have to live your whole life with. That's what we want to. Yeah. Please, Sadik.
Thank you.
Doctor, salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa
rahmatullah. A couple of issues. I think, so from a society impact, this is definitely a major issue, and you've seen it. The ranking of the UAE in this area is not pleasant at all. But again, I think getting into an app and making it quite optional is really not going to move the needle when it comes to some of the fundamental issues in the society that we're trying to address. Also, what I didn't see is that you're not tapping into other programs that are in existence around this subject. For example, you know for a fact today in the UAE, unless you go get a medical blood work before you get married, you're not even allowed, and no judge in the UAE will marry you without that medical and blood test. So that has been an enforcement in, I think, in the last almost 10, 15 years. But I'm not seeing, because you're part of the genome and you're looking at the future, but there is infrastructure, there is other elements today in the society that I'm not seeing you're addressing and trying to tap into it, or involve them into what you're suggesting to make it much more enforceable. And again, back to maybe David and Lucille's question, this has been part of the issue, and there is always a recommendation and conversations, and when the blood work comes incompatible, advice is given. And still people are not listening. So again, how do you address it? It is not just a time, it's a culture, it's other elements in what we have today in our culture that I don't see that this is really tackling the depth of it. How would you respond to that?
So I mentioned the premarital genetic screening because it is now mandated. So no judge is going to give any certificate without the premarital genetic screening, alongside, let's say, infectious disease or the other. However, we have to give the full autonomy to the couple to take that informed decision. So we can't force them or enforce them not to get married or get married. That's something that is up to them. Legally, we can't. So the only way that we can do it is to nudge them toward not getting married in a way, so to opt out of marriage in this sense. So if, like, culturally, we can raise awareness. And we did that. We raised awareness on why they shouldn't go ahead with marriage, and why this is, let's say, causing the UAE to be on that list as a sixth. However, it's just that some culture, we always say culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's very difficult to move or nudge culture in a way. However, if we can,
Dr. Mohammed, I think this is a very hot topic.
It is a hot topic.
It needs a lot more.
It definitely needs a lot more. I know that's for sure. It's just that when we thought about it, when we looked at everything, it's time can kind of like not change culture, but sway them in a way, and that's what we want to do, is sway them at the beginning, and then after some time, I think things will change.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reisch.
Thank you, Dr.
Sorry for taking longer than my time. Thank you. Well,
moving on from this really interesting topic that I think a lot of us would like to know more about and how it progresses. Our next presentation, please welcome Maryam AlFalasi, Senior Sustainability Manager at Majid Al Fatim, Carrefour Regional.
Assalamu alaikum. Where is it? 2.7 million tons of food wasted every year in the UAE. 2.7 million tons. That is equivalent to 5.4 billion meals, enough to feed the entire nation of the UAE. That's 3 meals a day, 180 days, 6 months of food wasted. Let me take you behind the scenes of a supermarket. I'm sure many of you enjoy grocery shopping, as do I. But have you ever noticed trolleys full of bread, or full of fruit and vegetables, or even full of baby food pass by you while you're shopping? Have you ever noticed? But instead of going to the checkout, they go to the warehouse. So I've been working in the retail private sector for 12 years. So I can tell you where they went. Okay. Every day I witnessed, sadly, these trolleys going to the waste room. It made me really sad. The food is not expired. It can be either shelf life policies, or damaged packaging, or even a dented can. What is the real problem here? Is it lack of food or logistics? Let me tell you, it's a pure behavioral challenge. Retailers want to donate, but they don't know how. And the system doesn't make it easy either. I am here today not to present a theory or an idea. I'm here today to present facts to a solution that works. 2 years ago, I started implementing a food donation program. I faced resistance from the legal team, from quality team, and also from risk and compliance. But with persistence and collaboration, we managed to develop the first food donation policy within our network. We partnered with NGOs. We trained our staff, and we created a clear process. Since then, we were able to donate 800 million meals. Imagine tripling that donation to 2.4 billion meals. How many people would benefit from this program? Now, this is a call to action. Imagine scaling this replicable project nationwide, implementing and developing the first national food donation policy, signing a declaration, a retailer declaration, publicly, partnering with the right NGOs. So with the right nudges and clear process and strong partnerships, retailers would become the biggest allies in food security. Let's stop seeing surplus food as waste and consider it as a solution. Because a meal someone might need today might be already sitting on a shelf. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maryam.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the panel of judges?
Want me to start this time? Yeah, so thank you so much. So your main suggestion, your main nudge, if you want, is a pledge. Is that, did I get this right? A pledge of the retailers, because there's no respective law, because there are laws, like in France or in Italy, about reducing food waste.
Thank you for your question. So being in retail, there is not only a pledge, but we want to donate as a retailer, but we didn't know how. There is a policy, and we have a target in the UAE to have our food by 2030. But they don't tell us how. So then we needed to create and develop an internal quality controlled procedure to follow, to make it clear to all the teams that this is the way we do it. We need to change their behavior. It was quite challenging, but I managed to do that. I hope that answers your question.
So I think there is the issue for sure. The problem I have with your suggestion, and I'm not seeing the details to be honest with you, is in a population of 10 million people in the UAE, and alhamdulillah, God, we're a very privileged country, and when it comes to needy people and all of that, majority of the population is not in need to maybe similar other countries in the neighborhood. So I don't know if, you know, the amount of waste of food could actually be distributed in the UAE. So if it's not in the UAE, what are you going to do with it, and how do you move it? Because that moves into a different logistics nightmare, thinking about it. So where is that impact? Are you only thinking about the UAE, or are you thinking out wider than the UAE?
So, great question, because I was thinking of that too. I thought of it, and I know our population, like in the UAE, everyone is well fed, let's say. So there is an idea that I had to turn the surplus food into other food. Like we could quick freeze it and package it into meals to send abroad. Logistically, it is a nightmare, but I'm sure we could find solutions to make it happen. But it's in the back of my mind.
Do you have any other questions? Thank you so much, Maryam. For our fourth presentation, please welcome Mohamed Janahi, Director of Competition in the Ministry of Economy.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present today. What inspired me to talk about this issue is a friend of mine who lives in Arabian ranches. And if you know Dubai, it's at the end of Dubai. And every week, he drives all the way to Souq al-Wajha al-Bahriya. And this is a half an hour drive, if there's no traffic. But usually there is, so he spends more than an hour. And I asked him, why do you go all the way there to do your shopping? He said, well, not only the prices are better, the quality is better, but there's actually local produce that they can find there. And I asked him, so why is that important to you? He said, in a country where we don't pay income taxes, I feel like there is a way to contribute back. And we can do that through giving back to the local economy, the local producers. I found that to be very interesting. And I thought, but why is that important to you? It's because it was the national security and economic security of the UAE is tied to the resilience of our logistics and supplies. I wondered, why aren't there more people like my friend? And when I looked at the issue, it seems that most consumed products in the UAE are imported. The second issue is that even the people who want to purchase local products cannot find these products. And lastly, there is a perception that the imported product is somehow better quality. And when we look deeper into the issue, it seems that there is lack of awareness, like labeling for national products in the shelves, even online. And also there is a perceived value for imported products. For example, when it relates to quality, the government monitoring of the logistical supply chain, and that issue can be addressed. So we need to raise awareness for the consumers that while imported products have visibility, and this is probably due to the billions that are spent in marketing, local products can also compete. So to go back to our main issue, the way we strengthen our national economy and improve resilience is to having more locally produced products on the shelves. And to do this, to encourage producers, we need to have consumers that are eager and interested in those local products. And the solution we propose is branded, made in the UAE products on the shelves. Now, this picture is illustrative, and it has a very make UAE great again feel, but there are more subtle ways of doing it. And also, you can tie up the purchases with loyalty apps. So I myself am motivated with loyalty programs, supermarkets that give me reward programs. So we can tie up the local products to the reward apps, and also have community-based nudges. So on paydays or certain national holidays, we reach out to the community, we inform them that, for example, 8 out of 10 from your neighborhood choose local, or for example, highlight something related to the quality of the government monitoring and consumer protection and the health monitoring of local products. This is just to raise awareness. How we will do this is we'll start with run a randomized trial, whether online or in a bricks and mortar retail shop. And it will be targeted towards a particular chain first. And then if within 4 months we saw that there's at least a 2% increase, then we can expand to more chains, whether online or physically. Thank you very much, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Mohamed.
Thank you, Mohammed. This was excellent. One question, and I think this is a fantastic idea, but can you maybe tell us a little bit more about how you actually want to make the made in the UAE the norm? Have you considered perhaps choice architecture, positioning both in brick and mortar stores, making the made in the UAE products more visible, or perhaps the first ones, or at eyesight, even online, rearranging the user interface so that the first items that you see are always the local produce. Could you maybe touch more on that, please?
Sure, thank you, Rasha. So we have already experiences in the organic space, and we find that in the organic space there are two choices that supermarket chains go for. It's either that they have a dedicated organic section and they put all their organic products there, or within the item itself, they state very visibly that an organic item next to the other items, and it's usually priced higher, of course. I think the latter would be a better approach for the UAE, and if we look at Carrefour's experience, they do a great job of putting the flags of countries next to products, and in this way we can put the flag, and usually it will be priced lower, the UAE product, because they don't have the logistical costs that others have. And yeah, I think this is the approach that would be recommended under our solution.
Thank you. So you just answered one of my questions about pricing, because in many countries, actually, the local ones are more expensive because you get all those cheap products that you can import from all parts of the world. So you mentioned labeling. I think this is absolutely super relevant. However, labeling can go both ways. So I'm from Germany. So originally, when they Made in Germany was invented, it was actually against Germany because people were supposed not to buy German products. That happily for the country turned around because they were conceived as quality products. To reach that, is there any type of, let's say, like product testing, like independent institution, like in Germany we have Stiftung Warentest, there's other ones worldwide, that can actually give credibility, like independent credibility as regards the quality promise, which I think it's really kind of a, I mean, just label is fine, but it is not going to be fine because you need the whole kind of supply chain credibility attached to it.
Thank you for this very interesting question. And I think inviting the dedicated international organization to conduct an assessment for example, the 9 critical commodities that the Ministry of Economy has already identified, and conducting, as a start, an assessment of those supply chains, and coming out with a report, a well-publicized report. International organizations, especially UN bodies and others under the World Trade Organization, can do such an assessment, those reports, due to their independence, have credibility. Now, our civil society here in the UAE continues to develop, but I think inviting an international organization to do a task like that would work well.
If I could just, oh, sorry, go ahead, Steve. You alluded to a really key point, which actually we see on organic products, which is a big issue, has been consumers often conclude, like washing up liquid, which is organic, you think, well, it isn't going to work very well. They literally think it's a negative. And even on the price point, it can backfire if it's cheaper, which is actually, does it signal, you know, whatever. So do you have any evidence with respect to how you think consumers would respond here to that flag? Will they see it as a positive thing, or will they see it as, oh, well, actually, I'm better off to get these ones imported because they're shiny and beautiful?
What I mentioned about raising awareness about the quality controls in place through notifications is a way to address this issue. People don't really know the quality controls that are applied here in the UAE. Especially if you follow regional affairs, there has been a few issues in respect to free zones and the manufacturing that happens there and how it goes to regional countries. So having those issues tackled in terms of explaining what actually happens by the government to assess quality controls and make that clear to consumers would help address the attractiveness issue, in my view.
Mohammed, just to put you on spot in front of everyone.
خذ
How can you convince all of us, you know, through this notch that, you know, made in UAE is actually better, or at least on par when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to quality? You mentioned, you know, as Dr. David said, you know, sometimes cheaper can go, you know, again, on a negative track. But why should it be cheaper if the logistic, I would say, effects when it comes to produce can also have a negative element to it? Again, not to tackle the socioeconomic experts here in the room, but how can you convince all of us that they are on par? Maybe the international organization might be one, but as consumers, as individuals, when we pass through that track, why would we buy that product over any other product?
Well, I mean, 2 issues. First, we'll talk about the nutritional aspect. I think, I don't want to sound like a broken record about this, but the nudging in terms of explaining the quality controls in place. The other aspect of it is also to tie it to a story. 9 out of 10 people are expatriates, and most of them believe that the national population live a certain lifestyle, but that's not true. A lot of people, especially in the agricultural areas, live different lives. I think bringing that story forward in the chains online, showing how our decisions, our daily decisions or weekly decisions when we shop can help contribute to society and give back, can help make those products more attractive. Thank you.
I hope we make it in the UAE. Thank you so much, Mohammed. For the
Thank
fifth
you.
presentation, please welcome Khulood Alawadi, Lecturer of Engineering Design at New York University, Abu Dhabi.
Good morning, esteemed panel and guests. I am an educator, and I'm here today because I've noticed a pattern, one that I cannot ignore. Across the world, boys are falling behind. In the UAE, boys are underperforming in national and international assessments. By grade 10, most have already disengaged. And 40%, only 40% make it to an undergraduate program. Many of these boys are on passenger mode. They are passively coasting, doing just enough to get by. And others are in active resistor mode, where they're pushing back or withdrawing completely. But in both cases, they are sending us the same message, that something isn't right. As a mother of boys myself, I know how easily disengagement can be misunderstood, how quickly boys can become invisible in systems that are not designed for them. This isn't just an education gap, this is a leadership gap. While there are many complex reasons behind this challenge, there is one thing we know for certain. Having a relatable role model can make a world of difference. Somebody that believes in you, someone that shows up for you. Mothers have traditionally taken up this role and have carried the heavy weight for boys' education. But there's another figure that stands at the margins, and these are the fathers. To the sons, fathers are often the first heroes, whether they wear a uniform, whether they run a business, or whether they're civil servants. Emirati fathers care. However, their contribution is often limited to the logistics, maybe drop-offs, maybe pickups, and financial support. However, the evidence is clear. When fathers are involved, academic performance improves, behavioral issues decrease, and higher education enrollment rises. A recent study found that 72% of Emirati boys report that their fathers take part in household chores. This is good news. This is higher than any other country in this region. So we have a lot of potential, but we also face a lot of barriers. Many fathers don't know how to support their sons academically, and some doubt that their presence would even matter. Schools often lack spaces that feel welcoming and relevant to fathers. And there are very few examples that we see in our daily lives of fathers going beyond the school gates. The UAE's success story is built on the legacy of fatherhood. Our founding fathers led not only through policy, but through presence. And presence means more than proximity. Presence means connection. Worldwide, we've seen father engagement programs that move the needle. However, to work in the UAE, we need a national movement that is rooted in our values and designed for our people. So I want to reframe this challenge by asking us three questions. How might we revive cultural legacy of fatherhood to re-engage boys in education? How might we design school environments and experiences that make it easy and meaningful for fathers to engage? And how might we shift social norms so that everyday father-son engagement becomes expected and not exceptional? The solution I'm proposing, I'm calling it the National Father and Son Initiative. As-Sana is a deeply rooted Emirati concept. It embodies manners, respect, it embodies good conduct and leading by example. As-Sana is not something that is taught in textbooks or in classrooms. It's something that is absorbed through lived experiences. It's something that you learn gently over time and through meaningful, small moments. This concept is the inspiration and the driver for designing better defaults for father-son engagement. So how are we going to do this? We will make it easy with simple, relatable messages and actions that offer fathers quick wins, attractive by celebrating father and son relationships through powerful stories and imagery, and social by showing that other fathers are doing it too and other fathers are participating, creating momentum and community, and timely by reaching fathers where they're at and in moments that really matter. This isn't about adding more pressure to already busy schedules. It's about gently recalibrating habits and recalibrating social norms, perhaps 1 minute a day, 1 hour a month, and 1 day a year. How are we going to know that we are successful or that we are succeeding? When fathers show up, not just once, but consistently over time, when father engagement becomes the norm and not the exception, and when boys feel seen and supported and their outcomes improve. Success is also when we have a tested playbook that is ready to scale across the nation, and when the data speaks for itself. When father engagement indicators and performance, student performance are strong enough to become part of national policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Khulood. Our judges, if you have any questions, maybe we start with the fathers. Or the mothers, it's okay.
Look, it's such a, by the way, I should have said, all of the presentations are extraordinarily high standard. We're giving you all a hard time, but anyway, just, it's such a profound issue, and I'm just trying to think about, in terms of the content, because there's a lot of work now about not just showing up, and you alluded to it, but the way in which you show up. And we've had actually fantastic presentations, not least from Andreas here from OECD and so on, about this sort of notion of how the parents felt. Are they going to, like the extent to which your child needs to struggle, the wish work, you know, the so-called theory of mind. And so I just want to push you a little bit on this issue about, you know, are fathers going to do the right thing, you know, when they show up, or actually to calibrate, or are they going to be angry with their son? Like in a way, what do you want to say a bit more about that?
I think the idea is to start developing a connection that's slightly separate from academic performance early on, and hopefully once that connection and that relationship is stronger and it's been developed, that effect would sort of trickle down to academic performance and engagement in schools. At least that's what I'm hoping for with this initiative. Thank you.
And I think my challenge, so the principle of the idea I have no issues with, and I think it's important for society, and we do see this globally, not just in the UAE. But what I haven't seen is actually, you know, more details about how is this going to be different than any of the programs. David alluded to one, you know, you make 100 fathers show up, how do you measure the quality? How do you entice the 100 parents or fathers to come? So I guess, again, I'm not able to judge because I don't think I've seen enough details to say, is this something that is feasible? Is this something that is implementable? And I think that's the challenge I have with the presentation. Now with the concept, now with the need, I 100% agree with you on those.
Thank you for that. Hopefully, with your support, we're able to trial or test some of the ideas that I've been discussing with my colleagues. I think it's a very big challenge, but I think something that's quite unique with this idea is that the focus on father and son relationships and not parent engagement as a whole. One thing that's really interesting here in the UAE is that public schools or most public schools are gender segregated. So this is a really good opportunity to tailor, you know, engagements and interventions for that context. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khulood. And for the next presentation, please welcome Sumaya Al-Hajeri, Lead of Executive Affairs at the National Projects Office, Presidential Court, Abu Dhabi.
Assalamu alaikum, good morning. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, what would a 5 seconds video worth?
Hello, my name is Gaming Controller, and welcome to Object Universe.
This video was created by an 8-year-old boy, but the story was not finished. I have received an agreement from the school it was a lengthy legal agreement for responsible use of digital devices for my son, who's 8 years old. It was very lengthy, it was very dull, it was a legal text, and they even forced him to sign on it. I doubt if he actually understood a single word of that agreement. They later were so kind just to tick the box, and they invited us for a single awareness session. And after that, I just realized that all of these forms, legal agreements, contracts on the school level, while the whole government is moving towards a vision of zero bureaucracy. Now it seems that the forbidden fruit is always the sweetest. كل ممنوع مرغوب. So all the teenagers are still on social media devices for up to 5 hours. We're still suffering from cyberbullying and contact by a stranger. And many countries try to tackle this issue by introducing a constraint. So they were not allowing social media to use by any of the youth without any consent from the parents, or even not allowing it at all. So why don't we think of an alternative solution? And this alternative solution is really balancing between getting the potential output of youth using social media, but at the same time, them using it in a safe manner. So why don't we just explore an empirical model in decision making? So how can we do that? It's mainly transforming social youth into a passive receiver of content on social media into active contributors of content on social media. And that's mainly educational content. And that's the target behavior we're trying to tackle. So if you can imagine that, youth or teenager are the best in taking a selfie, they're the best in making a video, but they are lacking storytelling approach. When they ask them to tell a story, they struggle. And everyone around them is struggling as well. So what they ended up doing on social media, they scroll and scroll and scroll endlessly. So what's our solution idea? So how can you make it very easy? How can we make it attractive, social, and motivate them even to provide or to share more educational content on social media? How can we reward them to do that as well? So, ladies and gentlemen, the solution that I'm trying to present today is very practical, feasible. It has been implemented around the world, but in a very scattered approach, and we're trying to bring it all together today under one policy. So mainly, we can motivate the youth by learning skills to navigate social media safely and reward them by earning a badge. And then we use the psychology of a streak so that they can continue uploading educational content on social media. So if they stop, they will lose their streak score. And then some cue messages just to tell them how they are performing compared to their peers as a comparison. And then, of course, screen time, which need to be controlled somehow by comparing their screen time to their community screen time. So all of this solution is already implemented, is practical, is feasible, and all of these international companies are so hungry for government partnership. So it's not only with the government, or it's not only partnering with orchestrators for this policy, but also making sure that those international partners and private companies who own these solutions, own these nudges, they come together to implement that under one umbrella. And it's easily can be scaled. I've been in touch with a fellow NEP from previous cohort, and she is leading the education in the Apple. And probably this can easily be implemented through that. And at the end, before leaving, I will leave you with one thought. Youth exploring social media is like swimming with sharks and walking on Mars. So they really need to learn how to swim with sharks safely, but at the same time, let's not lock them in a box. Let us make them shift the future of social media instead of having it the other way around. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sumaya, for this fantastic idea. Our panel of judges, please, if you have any questions.
Sorry, I feel like I'm being too active, but it's partly so very engaged in it. Look, it's such an important topic, and again, the evidence on it, I mean, even though historically people are worried, like 150 years ago we were terrified that people were really worried that teenagers' brains were being ruined by novels, reading books. And so there's a kind of, but the evidence now extraordinarily compelling that it's doing really bad things to kids. And again, this decline in certain kinds of cognitive ability, which we've seen in the last 10 years, the smoking gun has emotional effects, particularly on young girls. But the big question, I guess, would come back as a challenge, is that it almost feels like if we have a problem with gambling, I know what we'll introduce a thing where you can win a prize to not gamble. I'm being caricatured, but the idea that we'll do it as badges and so on. And I know that Jonathan Haidt, who we work with a bit, his view is about young people, because he's so worried about some of these effects, is that the last thing we need to do is give another badge. Like, we've just got to get you, just go and play with your kids, with your friends, So I wonder maybe, I feel quite conflicted, because on one hand I think it's the genius to use the technology, but on the other hand you say, well, have we just fallen straight back into the same trap that you might want to respond?
So I believe this solution, we need to design nudges, and probably it's not just a reversible solution as well. And that's something that we need to consider during the research as well. Thank you for your comments.
Sumaya, I'm looking forward for a sparring match between you and Faisal in the classroom.
With pleasure.
That you have two different interventions. But there is a nice saying that says, if you can't control it, regulate it. And I think that's what you're proposing. How could you scale this up? Or what are the incentives that you'll give parents and maybe the education system to start, nudging children into this new methodology?
Absolutely. So reward, there's nothing which is better than rewarding. And there are so many ways where we can reward. And when it comes to social media, everyone is hungry for recognition, especially teenage. And this is how teenage brain works. And one way is, I was just discussing this with my team, is mainly reposting a social media content post of a child by one of the government entities, or probably one of the private entities. Like, for example, I can imagine how happy my kid would be if his post was reposted by the UAE Space Agency. That's really thrilling. And not only that, other boys will be following that. Other boys will be competing to have content posted by other companies, maybe like Mubadala, for example. And so it's mainly creating that culture and making it like an attention process instead of signing a contract once and it's just at the beginning of the year and never hear back again from them. So I hope this answers your question. Yeah.
So I feel very conflicted about this topic, as probably most of us. And because on the one hand, we do, those personalized feedback and comparisons, I'm sure they're going to work, because that's exactly what the gambling industry and a few others industry are doing. We talk about dark patterns. We know how powerful they are. And I do see your point with swimming with the sharks. We do know that there is a general cognitive decline, actually for all of us, not just the students, since the rise of social media. We don't really have the evidence that that is the main cause, but it's definitely going to, it's one of the causes. So we're all getting less smart, unfortunately. So, and then when I look at like the Scandinavian countries where I spent and actually raised my family for about 20 years, so there was so much hype about not using, there was a school where it was advertised as a book-free school. They're actually back now to books, which I find really interesting. Sweden is back now to books because the learning is, the epistemology about the learning is different. So it's not really a question. I think it's important for us to see that this is one element of, again, a whole toolbox. So I really like your approach very much. And at the same time, we should probably make sure that as much attention and as much kind of nudging is used to also fill in the other gaps, and also to use nudges to also use non-digital media and get out and get the real experiences that you also mentioned. Absolutely. So I think it's a really important point because you're now focusing, of course, on the digital nudges, but it's one element, and if placed and embedded in an overall policy and approach, I think it's very valuable.
Absolutely. Thank you for your feedback. It will be considered. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And last but not least, welcome Mohamed Alwahedi, Programs Manager at the Department of Community Development, Abu Dhabi.
And good morning. It is usually said that what it takes a man to be considered married is a suitcase with a black clock like this, which I'm not going to wear in case my wife is watching. But, thanks, Maryam. If that is the case, why we have noticed a 25 decrease in the number of marriages in Abu Dhabi since 2014? Why we have noticed that the age of first marriage has increased to be 30 for males and 27 for females? In a study that we conducted at Department of Community Development, DCD, 71% of couples indicated that they have exceeded their planned budget for women's weddings, where 24% of that budget went for wedding stage, 16% for food and beverage, 20% for the venue, etc. All of that actually raised a red flag where we noticed that the fertility rate in Abu Dhabi is also decreasing. And that's where we had to step in. And that's when we launched Medim Initiative, which is the Emirati Marriage Initiative. And Medim means sustainable. Medim is actually standing on two principles: having simple, cost-efficient wedding and authentic weddings. We are promoting afternoon weddings for women's weddings, not for men. And we are promoting weddings that are cost-efficient, that are simple, without any meals. Why it is? I'm not shifting this. So, we are tackling the rise of social competition, imitation, show off at weddings by reducing unnecessary wedding expenses, by encouraging people, brides and grooms, to adopt Medim wedding. But we have identified also some barriers for couples to opt in Medim weddings. Those barriers could be knowledge barriers, where people do not know what is Medim, how to do Medim, what does it mean, what does it have. Cultural barriers, where it is actually tradition in the UAE to have evening weddings. And also the ecosystem, where the wedding industry actually it is geared toward evening weddings. And lastly, the prestige barrier, where people think that afternoon weddings are associated with a less social status. So in order to overcome these barriers, we are trying to make it easier and attractive for couples to adopt Medim weddings through different interventions. So we are offering an online marketplace with discounted packages for venues and wedding packages, where actually the default setting is to have it as afternoon wedding. So that is a nudge that we are trying to place. Another thing is we are actually using social media platforms to showcase successful Medim weddings, elegant weddings that fulfill all the essentials for weddings. And we are offering incentives for people who are adopting Medim wedding, like the marriage loan and the rental assistant. Also, we are engaging public key figures like tribes leaders and sheikhs, and also social media influencers and content developers. Lastly, also, we are integrating timely notifications through social events and also the periods of wedding plannings like Al-Eid, the summer, and the winter. We are now piloting Medim wedding model in Abu Dhabi, and we would consider it success if 30% of weddings annually in Abu Dhabi would adopt that model. And that's when, inshallah, we will be ready to roll it out and scale it into other Emirates. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. I have been informed that we have time for 2 questions.
Or maybe
So
no
please.
questions.
Please feel free.
Thank you. Look, really interesting. I very much hesitate to step into the kind of cultural issue. I also mentioned you made a causal claim early on, just about almost the link to fertility, which I thought was quite a big claim to have in there. But one thing we touched on earlier, I was very worried about, although it's extremely, it's a very laudable idea in lots of ways, is that so much of a wedding is a sort of celebration and also a kind of it's the social role. And any kind of signaling, like you're going to make it cheaper or more attractive, it feels to me it's very high risk that it could backfire, as opposed to the social elements that, for example, tribal or community leaders would be there. Seemed to me, it felt to me you might want to double down much more on that, and almost, it's like a positional good. Something becomes more valuable because it's expensive. And so I worried that that would backfire.
We are aware, David, of this challenge. And any social change would require time. And I recall maybe for 5 or 6 years, that when this thing started with men's wedding, so before around 6 years, His Highness Sheikh Diab had his wedding in the afternoon, and that was unusual. And through time, with 6 years, now it is the norm for men's wedding. Unfortunately for women, we need to incentivize things. So that's why we have the, the marriage law and the rental assistance. But for men, it became just norm with time. But we are actually aware and cautious about this challenge. Oh, Rasha, you know a lot about this.
No, I know you too well. The Medim model is different pieces of a puzzle whereby, as I understand it best, you can pick and choose to make it, to personalize it so that it best suits you and your future spouse. When developing the initial model, were these different parts of the program done in collaboration with the community? As in, was there qualitative, quantitative, any research done in order to see what the community actually want and whether they will accept this? Because I know that, as you said, the uptake amongst the men has been much more than the females. So I was just wondering, in the initial phases of the development of the program, was the community consulted, and were the different components of the program developed because of what you've heard and what you've seen would be acceptable by the community? Thank you.
Well, actually, many pilot weddings have been done before launching Medim model itself. Also, another thing that whenever we engage with people in the community engagement plan through majalis or through events, we are not bringing this intentionally, but we make sure that elderly are with us in these sessions. And we ask them directly, what were weddings look like back then? And believe it or not, they were saying almost the same, that weddings were in the afternoon, everyone was engaging, so it was actually social engagement rather than social competition. Another thing, we did actually a survey, and we noticed that many people are doing their weddings in the afternoon even before it is formal, before we launch Medim Wedding. Maybe in a simple way, in another way, but they were doing it even before we did and launched Medim Wedding.
Thank you to all our National Experts Program presenters for your insightful presentations, and to our judges for their thoughtful and engagement insights.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The only behavior change I would like to nudge is my mom with overfeeding us. On behalf of the National Experts Program and BX 2025, thank you for joining us this morning. We hope today's session offered meaningful insights into how behavioral science can help each one of us in shaping impactful solutions across different sectors. For the next steps, the winning presentations will be announced post BX 2025. Shaping behavior is an evolving journey as we continue to improve our policies to better serve our people, and we look forward to seeing how these ideas grow and evolve. Thank you once again, and enjoy the rest of BX 2025.